and welcome to another episode of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Um, this video, I decided to move into the early teen years. So this one's going to be, fun to say the least. So before I get started, though, I would like to just say that I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist or a medical professional in any way. I am just a regular person trying to navigate through life and trying to navigate what's going on here. And it's rough, but so far it's been pretty positive. I'm feeling difference already. I'm feeling some of that load that I've been carrying for all these years finally starting to lighten up. And if this is a way for me to do it, if this is a way for me to deal with it, then that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to continue to do it. Also, I'm still learning this whole video making process. I will say I've gotten better from when I started, but I am still just a complete beginner. So there'll probably be some new features. I'm going to try. Again, I'm still learning and I'm still the baby just learning to crawl phase. When I get up and I start running, I'm going to run. So with that said, I want to get into the early teen years. I kind of covered the first maybe 10, 12 years already. And a lot of that is going to influence me and how I react and interact with people from that point on. So I just remember being like between the ages of 10 and 12, things just seemed to increasingly get worse. Like my dad was just mad all the time. All the time. It would be once in a while he'd be in a good mood, but not very often. At least not with me. I mean, he might have been happy go lucky with my other siblings and not with me. I don't know. I wasn't there with them. So I don't know how he treated them. I just am only speaking on how he treated me. My mom was just right there, right behind him. I still, and it's a theory, I think she was just kind of afraid of him. So she just backed him up no matter what he did, no matter what he said. And that's just my theory, you know? And that's also my theory on why I think my mom really didn't like me too much, because I was the one kid who looked like him the most. In fact, I always joke that I'm just like an alien clone. The aliens came down, they cloned him, and it's me. I'm really an alien, but they just cloned him, and I'm stuck here. I just want to get back home. But, I didn't have any support system. My siblings were my siblings. Everyone had their own life and their own things to do. My sisters were quite a bit older, and my older brother was quite a bit older. So they I don't want to say they didn't care, but when you have your own friends, you have your own life, you're not going to pay attention to younger siblings like that, because my next oldest sister is 5 years older than me. Sometimes I felt like they were embarrassed when we were around them. And that's just my feelings. I'm not saying that's what they were doing, but that's how I felt. But going back to my dad, back then he put his work above everything. And I mean everything. If he had to go to work and he was going to work and he was going to work, that was it. He didn't have time to hang out with us. He didn't have time to visit. He didn't have time to learn about his kids. He just put the food on the table, and that was enough. And I heard him tell somebody that too. I heard him say, something about my mom complaining that he doesn't say I love you enough. And then he said, I put the food on the table. That's enough. So, and I heard those are the words out of his mouth. I heard him say that himself. So, having a childhood where the bare necessities were all you were going to get. And if you asked for any more, you were selfish and stingy. And that was it. That was how I spent the first 12, 13 years. And we would go to my grandparents' house like every weekend, and they lived way up in Gary. And we would spend an entire weekend there. And I don't know why. I feel like then again, all these videos are just my interpretations of these things. But looking back, I feel like we would go there, and then my parents would wait on them hand and foot. My grandparents, they would do all kinds of stuff, and they would cook, and they would visit, and they would drink beers and spend the entire day together while we had to sit on the couch and watch TV, whatever they had, whatever they sit on the plastic wrapped couch. You couldn't step off the runners on the carpet. It wasn't real fun. It wasn't real fun for us. We couldn't go outside and play because we were in Gary, so they wouldn't let us. They said, no, you got to stay inside. So and getting back to that, I feel like my parents thought that if they did that for their parents, then we would eventually just do that for them. Like they were entitled. They were entitled to it. And I'll get on that topic a whole lot more when people just feel more comfortable in their home environment. And I understand that, but like I said, it's an issue I will cover a lot later. But yeah, we would do that, and then later in life, my parents were all disappointed that we weren't absolutely catering to them and waiting on them hand and foot and showering them with gifts. And these are all things that my mom had said. You should be showering us with gifts. Those are her words. She couldn't open a card, say a Christmas card or a birthday card, any kind of card. She couldn't open it without shaking it first. Every single time. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. Okay, continuing on. When I was 13, I ran away from home. And my punishment for that was having to spend my afternoons after school at the shop with my dad and be his helper. Nobody ever explained. Like after the whole incident, one day I came home from school, my mom told me, "Change your clothes." And then she drove me out to the shop and dropped me off without a word. And then I had to be his helper. I had to be his little bitch helper, his little tool grabber. The guy that you yell at when you're upset at the work you're doing. And that was in Gary. So I couldn't go outside because they wouldn't let me because they were afraid of Gary. It's funny. We lived in Gary. My grandparents lived in Gary. My dad worked in Gary, but they were so afraid of Gary. And for the obvious reasons. My dad had his reasons for his hate of other minorities. They're not legit reasons, but he had his own reasons. And we had to spend I had to spend my afternoons and my weekends at this stupid, smelly, shitty body shop in Gary. I can still smell that place. I hated it so much. This big, dumb, dirty, dusty warehouse. Everything was filthy. There were rodents running around. This little tiny ass kitchen that they had in the back that they acted like was some gourmet kitchen, but it was just a little hole in the wall in the back corner right next to the toilet. And my older brother worked there too. So not only did I have my dad treating me like his little helper bitch, but I had my older brother doing it too. So I got 2 people, 2 men in the family that I should be looking up to. 2 men that should be setting an example. Those 2 treated me the worst. And when you have 2 people coming at you, you can hardly defend yourself. Because if I got upset, then the old man would just blow up and yell at me for being upset. Like I was supposed to just take it. I was supposed to take it all and not say a word and not get upset. And that's what happened pretty much all the time. When I would get upset, then he would get mad at me and he'd yell and scream at me for being stupid and then punish me for whatever and make me do whatever. And that was just an ongoing cycle. Ongoing. It was all the time. I hated that place. So much of my childhood was replaced with hanging out in this stupid shop. You know, I'm still 13, 14 years old, trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out what is happening in the world, trying to figure out life in general. And I get all twisted with other jealous men. That's my interpretation of it. I truly believe that the older men in my life were just kind of jealous, and that's why they felt the need to hold me down. When I got older, I was young and handsome, and my dad was not ready to pass that torch, so he was going to tear me down every chance he got. He's going to make fun of me, my face, make fun of my hair, make fun of everything. Just because he could. Just because he could, because he wanted to keep his place on the top of that hill. And, you know, during this time, puberty hits. And I'm all confused, but I can't talk to anyone. I couldn't talk to anybody about my let's just call them nocturnal emissions. Is that what they call it? You know, my body was doing weird stuff and I had no idea, but if I asked anybody about it, they were just going to laugh. So I had to just keep it to myself. And then during this time, we moved into junior high, which was probably the most confusing time of my entire life. Trying to figure out who I am, have no support at home. And now we go into this new school with a whole new bunch of kids that I've never met before. And to me, just as my impression, they just seem so angry. All of the new kids that I seem to experience, they all just seem so angry. And I just didn't get it. And it was just my interpretation. Maybe they weren't, and I was just, misreading things, which I do from time to time. But like everybody was just like grumpy and you couldn't ask anybody a question without like some kind of attitude. And that was just me. I mean, I don't know what it was like for anybody else. I can't speak for anybody else. But I just felt so out of place. Every time I needed help, I was treated like a burden. Anytime I asked anybody anything, they treated me like I was stupid and I should have known. Just like my parents do. They still do. If I'm asking something, that means I don't know. And I would like to learn. But so many times, they just kind of laughed at me for not knowing. And I had no conflict resolution. I didn't know how to react or anything, how to defend myself. Because what was the only defense that I learned growing up to this point was maybe if I be quiet, then they'll finally just leave me alone and they'll stop yelling at me. I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know how to confront anybody else if they were doing whatever. It was I'm sorry, it was exhausting because I didn't know my place and just seemed like more and more my place was lower and lower. And one thing I do think back, maybe there are people who have had rough upbringings as well, and maybe that contributed to their behavior. But I don't know anybody's story, and I had the dumb upbringing, and I chose to not act like that, to not treat other people like that. So, I can understand, but I don't understand why they just can decide to continue with that behavior. And you look back and did I like it when people treated me that way? Probably not. So why are you doing it to somebody else? Do you want them to feel like that? I don't want anybody to feel the way I felt. I don't. Sometimes when my boys were in middle school, and once in a long while they would tell me a story about a classmate being a jerk, and I wanted to go to that school and kick that jerk's ass, and I can't do that because he's a kid. But I wanted to be protective of my son in a way that nobody was ever protective of me. You got to break those generational curses. You can't let tradition tell you what to do. Tradition is just rules set by a bunch of dead people. I don't need to impress them. I don't need to impress the ones in the family that are gone, but that might have been macho men and misogynistic. I don't need to do that. I heard plenty of that from my old man. He always had jokes about women. I don't know. That's not cool. And then that was the thing. It was normal. And he would always say stuff like that. And then when I got older, I finally started confronting him. And when he would tell a stupid joke like that, then I would just look at him like, that's not funny. That's really not funny. But going back to junior high, I was still smaller than everyone because I'm not a big person at all. But back then, I was smaller than pretty much everybody. So I felt like I was an easy target. And that's when the bullies started zeroing in on me. It seemed like I was, and I might be exaggerating, but it seemed like I was threatened bodily harm at least once a week for no reason. I didn't start shit with anyone, but me existing, just being there, would piss somebody off, and they would threaten to kick my ass. I never fought anybody in junior high. I never really fought anybody in high school either. It was always a threat. It was always a threat. I'm going to kick your ass. Why? What did I do? I'm just here. I didn't say a word to you. But there were times when people would push me or test me because they could. There was the times it seemed like every other day in the morning when I'd be at my locker and two boys, and I can still see their faces and I know who they are, but I won't mention names. But these two boys would take turns pushing each other into me every day or every other day. And they would make it seem like it was an accident. We're just pushing each other around, and he just happened to be there. But it was every other day. Like they were targeting me. They saw me. Oh, hey, let's go push him into his locker. And they thought it was funny. I don't know what to say. How do I don't even know how to defend myself. Well, how am I going to defend myself against two boys that are bigger than me? And finally, somebody else spoke up, noticed it was happening, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I did to deserve that. I didn't do anything. I never even spoke to these people. And they were having fun pushing me into my locker. And then in one certain class, there were three boys that decided they were going to take turns smacking me in the back of my head. They would take turns sitting behind me and would smack me around when the teacher would turn her back. Some kids would laugh. Some were uncomfortable by it, but they didn't say anything. And that was my breaking point. Okay, now I have people calling me names and threatening to kick my ass, whatever. But now these people are actually putting their hands on me. I didn't know how to defend myself versus two boys, but now I got to try to defend myself versus three. And one day I had enough. And we walked out of that class, and I grabbed one of those boys by his shirt and slammed him against the wall as hard as I could. And I just remember yelling, and I saw red, literally saw red, and I got nose to nose, and I just said, let's go right now, as loud as I could. I had enough. I was either going to kick someone's ass or I was going to get my ass kicked, but I didn't care because I hit the breaking point and I had enough. You put your hands on me. I didn't put my hands on anyone. You put your hands on me. So that's why we're here. And looking back on that incident right now, he just looks so scared. His eyes got real big and he just looked so scared. All the other kids scattered as fast as they could. And he just said something. He just said something that I think he didn't even really think. He just said, I don't want to get in trouble. And he took off and he ran away. And after that, not a single one of them hit me in the back of my head. Not one. I never had good reaction or never had good interactions with these three all throughout junior high and high school. And it is what it is. If you're in school, you don't have to be friends with everybody, but these were the ones that just intentionally, they chose to make it difficult for someone else. And I wish I could go talk to those people face to face, look them in the eye and ask them why. Why did you do that? Did it make you feel good? Did it make you feel big? Did it make you feel strong? Did it make you feel like a big man? Is that what it takes? Three people picking on one little guy to feel good about themselves? And that's a trigger from my old man. He always treated me like I just didn't matter. Like I was just punching bag. And I don't know what I ever did to any of these people. I didn't do anything. I know I didn't do anything. But they did it just because they could. I'm going to take a real quick break. I'm going to collect my thoughts, look at my notes, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, continuing on. I'm going to wrap this video up here pretty soon because I have a lot of material to cover. So I'm going to cover it in multiple installments. And I'm already at 30 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this one up as best as I can and then continue on with another video. So going back to junior high, going back to school. The hallways in the classrooms, they felt like it did at home. Just kind of empty, cruel. There was always someone that was going to say something mean to me. There was always, I felt like I either had a target on my back or I was completely invisible. And that's how I felt at home. If you stay out of the way and you stay out of sight, then they probably won't attack you. But that's not a guarantee. And this is when anxiety really began to take root. This is where anxiety really took a hold of me. I was always nervous. I was gonna make somebody upset. Nervous I was gonna make somebody mad. Nervous I was gonna say the wrong thing. Nervous somebody was gonna make fun of me. Nervous that I just would be laughed at. So sometimes being quiet and being invisible is better than being laughed at. And I was jealous. I was always jealous because it seemed like I would see these groups of friends and I would just walk the hallways alone. I never had like a group of friends, not until later, but it was just like I wasn't close enough to anybody where we lived, so I didn't have any friends that way. I I just felt like such an outsider no matter what. I saw all these groups, all these little groups, and kind of wish I could have been a part of one of those groups. But you can't just walk up to a group and say, "Hey, can I hang out with you guys?" I was too nervous to do that. I was just too nervous. Plus, I was just always scared I was going to make somebody upset. You walk on eggshells at home, you learn how to walk on eggshells at school. Try to stay out of sight, out of mind. It was easier for me. Not fun, but it was easier. And in that time, there were many crushes. I had many crushes on quite a few of the girls at school, but I never ever got up to nerve to talk to anyone. It was just the fear of rejection. I felt like they might just reject me the same way that I'm rejected at home, and rejection is pretty harsh on a kid. So you just live your fan fiction at home and pretend, what would it be like if she and I were dating? What would it be like? Stuff like that. That's all I could do. I could just use my imagination. I was just too afraid. And some of the teachers were nice and some of them were big time jerks. I don't know if these teachers were jerks to everybody, but I know they were to me. That was my feeling. And I didn't know where my place was. I had no idea. Everything was really confusing. And I had no one to talk to about it. I didn't really have any close friends that I could talk to about my feelings. Feelings were for wimps, according to my dad. Keep that to yourself. You'd be angry and a macho man all the time, and that's the way to be. And that was my old man. And I guess part of the being quiet, or part of the not ever approaching anyone or asking anyone out, is that if you don't shoot your shot, then you won't be rejected. Sounds funny, sounds stupid, it really does. But I was already learning how to protect my already fragile sense of self. I already came into this with I felt like a water balloon walking around a building of pricks. And one of them was just waiting to just pop me. So it was tough being a kid for me, trying to figure out life, but then having nothing but obstacles and challenges, and I got through them. But I'm just thinking about that time. At that time, this was happening. I was just having the worst time going through life. No one to support me at home and no one to support me at school. So I just had to keep walking alone. And I will say I did have friends, but still they were at school friends. We were friends when see each other in the hallway, but we didn't hang out. We didn't talk to each other outside of school. So I'm not saying I didn't have friends. I had friends, but I was never part of a group. I never hung out at anybody else's house. Never really did much, as far as the other kids, because I was just too far away from everyone. And I will say that, like, I think band and art class were some of the few places where I did feel kind of accepted and seen, where I felt acknowledged. But other than that, it was just a faceless, nameless ghoul just floating through school. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. It sounded kind of cool. Anyway, yeah, this is, I'm going to wrap up this video. This is the early teen years, going through my junior high and figuring out life and puberty and becoming self-aware of hygiene, realizing, wow, I kind of stink. I should take a shower. I didn't think about stuff like that when I was younger. But, puberty hits, hormones hit, stink hits. One day I smelled myself and I thought, wow, do other people smell that? And even when I would take a shower every morning, I was still worried that somebody was going to find me offensive somehow. Always looking over my shoulder, thinking, who's gonna verbally attack me today? And if you never felt this way, I'm glad for you. If you had a good time in school, and if you had really good friends, and you had a supportive family, and you had supportive friends, I'm happy for you. I really am. I'm jealous, but I'm happy for you. I wish we could all have that, but we don't, or at least I don't, and I didn't. And I'm not trying to, you know, come down on anybody for having a good past, having a good relationship with their family. Again, I wish I had that, but I didn't. And that's why I'm making these videos, so I can unpack some of this stuff and I can get it off my back. And part of my intention for these videos is that other people will maybe hear my story, maybe hear my message and think that was what it was like for me as well. I just want people to connect, and I want people to realize that we're not alone. You're not alone, and I'm not alone. Sometimes it can get dark, and sometimes it can get very lonely, but there are people out there that will help, and you just kind of have to look for it, and you have to reach out and talk to someone. I recommend, and again, I'm not a doctor, but I recommend talking to a doctor. I recommend talking to a therapist. I haven't done it, and I have my own reasons, but I really want to. I want to see a therapist. But I do know that making these videos has helped me uh, realize a lot of things about myself, And I'm going to keep doing them until I get all the way through. Because like I said, I have a huge trunk and it's full of shit and I want to get all of it out. So with that said, I thank you all for watching. I thank you for your support. And if you would like to keep supporting this channel, I would accept donations. And please like, share, and subscribe. Tell everybody you know. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell everyone. Somebody out there is going to hear this. And somebody out there is going to connect. Somebody out there is going to relate. Somebody knows what it's like. I'm not the only one, and I know you're not either. So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I will see you all very, very soon.